new monorails coming to Disney, news coming out of the Disney-Fox merger, and more. Welcome to the first of possibly a series of sporadic and occasional episodes of my commentary on news coming out of Disney. I've had people ask about things like this before, and I've kind of debated, and so here we go. You get to listen to me kind of spout my opinions about some of the news and whether I think things will happen, or they're good ideas or bad ideas, and who knows what else will come up. So I thought I'd start out with a couple of things that have been in the news lately about Disney. Of course, everybody started hearing in December about Disney making a purchase offer for Fox. And they made a multi-billion-dollar offer, over $52 billion, to buy out Fox's TV studios, movie studios, the broadcast channels, the cable network, pretty much everything except for Fox News, Fox Sports, and some of their other broadcast networks. Other than that, pretty much everything that Fox owns. It is a huge deal. Well, then today more news came out that actually Comcast had actually made a bigger offer for all of this, but Fox turned them down. I mean, huge. And so there's a lot going on with this and a lot of questions, and people are constantly wondering, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? You know, what's it going to mean for the parks? Is it going to mean a whole lot of these Fox properties that'll then start showing up in the Disney parks? Well, there's a long ways to go yet. It still has to get completely reviewed by the government and then get approved and checked out and explored, and it's not going to be finalized until the spring or summer of 2019. Assuming that it gets finalized as it is. And there's a lot of questions even on that. Comcast, it almost surely would have been vetoed with the way it was because they just would have had too much power and control. Even Disney is looking at having, in a lot of ways, what may be perceived of as too much power and control. As an example, on box offices at the movie theaters. This combined company, if you had put them together in 2017, would have controlled over 40% of the U.S. movie box office revenue. That is a huge chunk. Almost to the point where, well, not just almost, it really probably is to the point where they could dictate to the movie theaters what they want and what their terms are, and that could cause some definite issues. There's some concern about them having that much of a portion of it. And then you start adding in the TV networks and the TV broadcast studios. There's actually one point in December of 2017 where if you took just the Disney movies and the Fox movies and you put them together, they would have had 90% of the box office at the movie theaters. That's a lot of control. Is it too much? I'll be honest, I'm a little concerned about that. Because it only would leave 5 major film studios in Hollywood, in fact. You'd have Disney, which would be, like I said, 40% of the market. And then that other 60% is then made up of only 4 other studios. Warner Brothers, Paramount, Universal, and Sony. I don't know how equitable that is. We've lost so many studios over the years that if you're a mid-range, mid-budget movie, even now, it's really hard to even get an in, and that's going to make it even harder on that. So I have some mixed feelings. As much as I love Disney, I struggle with them having that much of it. Cable channels, it means they're going to have like a power or influence over a huge percentage of the cable channels. Even things like online streaming services. Now, of course, everybody's familiar with Netflix. Netflix is the huge beast right now. But Amazon Prime is moving up. But this also would give Disney controlling stake in Hulu. Hulu is one of the other major players in online streaming. They're not as big as the others. But all of a sudden, Disney has a controlling stake in it. They own a percentage now, which is split up several ways. Now, this is on top of Disney wanting to set up an ESPN streaming service, and then their own streaming service, which have Disney shows and Star Wars shows and things like that. And now you've got Hulu as well. So all of a sudden you're going to have multiple Disney streaming content providers. And again, do we start to run into issues with them controlling this much? And so I struggle with that. As far as properties in the park, there's a whole lot of Fox properties I would not want to see in the parks. And it can possibly create some other conflicts. As an example, The Simpsons. I don't know how you feel about The Simpsons. My family has never been fans of them. But they've already got a contract to have The Simpsons in the Universal parks. But with it being a Fox property, would that mean that Disney would now own it? And can't that create a whole lot of conflicts? And I don't know about you, but I'm sorry, I really don't want to see The Simpsons in a Disney park. I don't feel like they fit. I think Marvel and Star Wars can fit, yes, but not The Simpsons, not Family Guy, not a lot of those other kinds of shows. They're not things I want to see show up at Disney. In my mind, they're just not very Disney-esque. And I understand Disney wanting to make money, and would this give an opportunity to make money. For a company that already made over $1 billion in profit. That's not just net income, that's profit after all expenses. $1 billion plus last year. That's huge. And so I struggle with this. Like, does a huge monster company already need... is there any need for them to get bigger? It would mean that they would control every streaming point of the production of a TV program, for example. They would control the studios, the writing, the TV stations, and every place it would be produced. I don't know that any other company can say that. So it kind of frightens me a little bit. I'm not real big on government regulation, but there is definitely a part of me that kind of says, this might be a little too much. And I understand Fox wanting to size down and focus on their core thing and everything, but there's a part of me, I think, that I would rather see Fox spin that all off into a separate company on its own than have it get bought by another company to just become even bigger. It wouldn't be a monopoly, but it would certainly be a huge controlling interest in the company and in the market as a whole. And that worries me a little bit. I like competition. I like variety. I like small players being able to hold up against big players, and I'm afraid it would shut some of that down. So a lot of it's going to be wait and see. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, and I'm certainly not going to proclaim myself an expert on any of it because I'm not. But there's a definite skeptical part of me on this whole thing. A part that wouldn't mind seeing parts of this deal not go through and then kind of say, you know what, that might be a little too much. But we'll see what happens. We'll find out for sure in spring or summer of 2019. The other big news that's come out of Disney recently has been the monorails. If you don't know, the monorails at Walt Disney World are old, and they've had a number of issues. Recently, there's a video out there of somebody on the monorail train. Whew, my mind just went... It does that. My mind kind of fell off the rails. Yeah, there we go. And the monorails have had problems with parts falling off. They actually had a couple times where they've had wheel assemblies fall off the trains. But what really made the news recently was the monorail door popping up when the monorail was coming from Epcot to Magic Kingdom, at least on the spur that runs up to the Transportation Ticket Center. And a door opened up while there's people inside. This is not a good thing. So the fleet, unfortunately, it's old, it's worn out, and it's done its job. So it's been kind of overdue to get replaced. But Disney hasn't done that. And now recently, in the last week, there's been this rumor that all of a sudden they're going to buy a whole new fleet of trains, and they've completely canceled the theater project at Magic Kingdom. And the rumor is that the money's being taken from that to help pay for new monorails. I don't know about that part of the rumor. I don't know if Disney has bought new monorails or not, but they're way overdue on it. They desperately need them. Part of the talk is that this new cable car system that they're building is going to help replace it. It can't even compete. And on a completely separate note, I don't see the Skyliner cable cars doing very well. I don't think they're going to do what people are thinking they're going to do. You've got non-air-conditioned cable cars that are going to seat like a dozen people in them with plastic walls all around in the hot, humid Florida heat, and there's no air conditioning, and they're almost completely enclosed, which means they're going to be hot and humid and sticky inside. and then you add in the Florida thunderstorms with the winds and the huge amount of lightning that is probably going to mean they have to shut it down anytime that happens. So from May to September, they're going to have to shut it down almost every day for weather. There's a lot of skepticism on my part about that. I don't think that is necessarily a good investment. And I think it's going to be one of these that people are going to get excited about, and I don't think it's going to do as well as they hoped. I really hope I'm completely wrong on that, and it works wonderfully. But all that aside, Disney has to do something about the monorails. They desperately have needed to do something about the monorails for a long time now. And I really do hope that they're buying a new fleet. I love the idea of the theater at Magic Kingdom. I really do. And I hope they're not pulling money from that. I kind of hope that's something else. I like to see that theater make it at some point. But if we have to sacrifice the theater to get new monorail trains, do it. Those trains have got to be replaced. Even when I was working there, which was 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago now, you could see the age and the wear and tear on them. And then we had the terrible, tragic accident that happened several years back that took the life of one of the monorail operators, and the whole system needs to be upgraded. The computer operation system, the keeping track of the trains themselves, it just needs a massive overhaul and upgrade. So, rumors true or not, I really hope they're true, and that Disney's finally doing what they should have done probably 10, 15 years ago, and replacing the trains, because those poor things need it. Now, I'm hoping that they replace it with something that looks similar. Bombardier has a couple different monorail lines. One, which you'll see in Tokyo, which has a real snub nose, and it's a bigger train. I don't think that one will work. It's much bigger than what their monorail beam will hold. But there's another train that they use, a slightly smaller one, their 200 series, that you can actually see in Las Vegas. And those would be cool. Slight modification on the nose and style it a little bit. And I think those might be able to work. So hopefully, fingers crossed, Disney actually has new monorails in the work. And then we'll see how long it takes them to get them built and switched. And if they have to make other upgrades on the line before they can put the new trains on, and how involved it may be. It may be one of those things that you may see if they do get new trains, that say they put the new trains on the Epcot line first, and then they put it on just one of the rounds that go around Seven Seas Lagoon and the parks. And then they finally add it onto the other. So they've got essentially 3 different monorail lines. They can interchange them right now, but you may see newer trains just operate on one line at a time until they can get all of the trains replaced, and gradually do it that way. It also may mean that you may see some of those lines shut down for a little while they're upgrading them and getting them ready for the new trains. But we'll see. Optimistically, I'm really hoping for new trains. It would be a wonderful, wonderful addition. So, what do you think about the Fox-Disney merger? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? What about the new trains? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Or would you rather keep the idea for the new theater? What else do you think Disney needs to do? Other future series, I'll probably be talking about changes in Future World at Epcot, which we definitely need some changes there. There's some coming, but there's going to be more down the line, and what else needs to happen there? What else would you like to hear about with Disney? What kind of things do you think would be a good idea? New locations for Disney parks. Do they even need more Disney parks? What about the current parks that are there? Disney Paris, of course, has a whole lot of changes coming up in the next couple years, and maybe even more that they haven't announced yet. What's going to be in the future for Tokyo Disney and everything else? I'd love to hear from you. Give me some ideas, and if you enjoy the idea of a series or not. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for supporting. God bless.